How to work one of those?
Trying to learn.
I gotta go find mine.
Everybody wants it. They can, moving out.
How you doing? Trying to get in?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. I don't know if it's got a rain yet. You're from, yeah, well, that's about time we left. So you got it about the same time. You don't know if it rains. You didn't have a great night for swimming, did you?
Well, that's okay. Yeah. hunting, huh? Think much of it,
I don't think my guess is that this rain. It didn't rain here.
Where you go, Jeremy? Talk to you. How's it going?
I'm good. I'm not giving any commentary on this.
Jim, you take me up and make sure my stomach's pulled in first.
Okay, so. I haven't been giving any commentary, so you don't have to worry about that. Except Tom there checking all the desserts out.
No. Tommy's gonna bring them out. I thought we brought them. No, you didn't. Oh, does he have one? Tommy has one. Well, I know what.
I gave those to Tommy, and he said he's going to give each person one.
Well, now see, there was a way to do it. I only want 40 or...
Well, I said one for each family.
Well, like... I think everybody, I was told, one for you and me, and one for Catherine and Gary, or they all live here, and I really know that. I marked down how many children each person has. The couples get one, and then the children each get one. But not the great...
What do you think? Someone will get one?
So that he knows how to give all how I arrange it.
I told him one for each family.
Andy. I did not see him at all.
That's very good.
Here, Jim. Thank you, buddy. taking your picture right now, Mom. Huh? Stay there a second. Bring that guy closer there. Let me see if I can. What's this guy's name?
It's Michael William Renowski.
Michael William? Is that the Michael William?
That's the Michael William.
Holy
The
smokes.
fourth.
Okay.
Right, the fourth. Yeah, we have a lot of Michaels in our family. Okay, tell Uncle Jim bye.
Bye-bye, Michael William. Charlie and Mimi.
They had the right idea, huh?
Mm-hmm.
The heck was sitting around there talking.
Right.
Go out there and have some fun.
Get out there and paddle around Blue Spruce Lake.
What do you need, a paddle?
Motor, yeah, would be more apropos.
Is it hard to pedal?
Pardon me?
Is it hard to pedal?
Yeah, Nick, sir, she can't really. When you get two people going, it isn't too bad.
Yeah, you're moving now. Oh, she has her camera out there, too. That looks like fun. Doesn't it? Jimmy said she wanted to go. I said, well.
So, Mimi? So,
Somebody's taking the video. I didn't want to walk in the middle of it. Hi. Joey and Rose. How are you? Lovely. Do you remember when?
hi.
Hi, who are you?
How you doing? Hi, Pretty good. Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, we're not. He's going to get introduced to. That's Cameron. How you doing? I dance at your wedding. Is it? Man!
Oh, he's not to see him for you.
Yeah.
Oh,
This is great.
long time. That's it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Well, you got me saying that you're going to do some interviews with
talking a little bit.
Okay.
Just all you brothers and sisters. that's all.
You mean like one at a time?
Right.
Oh,
One at a
okay.
time.
So I sit on the one chair,
And I'm going to sit here. Yeah.
and you're going to interview me.
Right. It's not on. We're
Go
on.
ahead. You're on.
Okay. First of all, Uncle Andy, do you mind if I ask you how old you are?
I'm 73 years old.
73. Okay. When you think about Grandma and Grandpa, your mom and dad, what stands out in your mind the most? Like, do you have a favorite memory, or is there anything in particular
Well,
that you think
yeah,
of?
I do, Susan. My memories always go back to the Depression days. You know, when things were so tough, there was very little money coming in, and how us kids would, you know, we'd eat the regular things, but we wanted the store-bought bread and different things you got from the store, which we didn't have. We had everything homemade. And that was, you know, now people really go for all those homemade things, but at that time, that was one of the big things. And, well, then another was how we lived, you know, compared now we see how the children live. And we had like, well, you couldn't even call it a farm, but we raised pigs, and we raised a cow, and I had to take care of the animals. And you really don't see children doing that anymore. Children live an entirely different life. And so this, to me, is the big contrast between then and now.
That was sort of my next question. I wanted to know, what was it like for you as a child growing up? You know, with your brothers and sisters?
Yeah, those were the things. And I don't know your first question. You mentioned...
just your favorite memory. Do you have any particular memory of Grandma and Grandpa?
Well, of them, I just know they were very strict. We really had to obey the law, and if we didn't, we got smacked for it. And, I don't know. I think between that and the food and the farm work, you know, the animals, and those are the memories. That part of my life when I was a child, you know, before, well, up to 13, 14 years of age. Those are the things I recall.
Okay.
And there could be a lot more, you know, going to school and so forth. You know, we were short distance into school. We just ran up. We came home for lunch. We had a half-hour lunch. We had to come home and gobble something up, then be back at school. But you know, if I tried to think of every memory, I could go on forever. But so those are some of the things.
Okay. Is there a favorite story that Grandma and Grandpa used to tell that you could share with me? Anything maybe when they first got married, or is there one particular story that they would always refer to?
Well, I don't know if they always referred to this, but the one that sticks in my mind is when my mother was coming across on the ship. And she said the waves were so high, and they lived in these cramped quarters, and it was very, very miserable for them. And I know she mentioned that story many times, and it stuck with me. I remember that. There may be a few more things, but, well, I'm sure a lot more things if I stretch my memory.
Do you remember anything else about that trip coming across? Any other details?
No, just that there was a certain aunt or uncle waiting for them at the dock or the harbor, wherever they landed. And how they were just in awe of everything, the way the New World book and things. And I got all this from my mother. I got very little from my father. He rarely told stories like that. Yeah, not to me anyhow, unless... And,
why do you think? Was he just quiet, or did he just,
well,
is that just
he
his
wasn't
way?
that quiet, and to me, we were really like friends. You know, I started out as a young kid hunting with him, then I went to work with him, and we worked on a farm together. We had a big potato patch. Like I say, we had these animals. We raised potatoes, and we had to feed the animals. And we'd go to buy a cow. I went with him. I always went with him wherever he went. He was like really a good friend of mine. And but I couldn't get on a line if he smacked me if I didn't do something right. And of course, he taught me how to work in the garden and all those things. That teaching was more like I had to work, you know, so of course that you learn. But if you didn't do it right, he just didn't like that at all. He would
What do you remember about your brother John?
Well, I remember a lot about him.
I think so many people don't know much at all about
but I don't remember when the accident happened. I was too young. But maybe a year or so later, when he was limping, he had his leg operated on, and it made one leg shorter. And so he walked with a limp.
What accident did he have?
Well, the accident was he went up to these big bony dumps that they have in the coal company had cars up there on top of that. And some of the bigger boys broke one car loose. They were going to go for a ride down the hill on this coal car. And he was somewhere down near the bottom. And I guess he didn't hear the car come, or he didn't see it. So hit him. It didn't actually cut his leg off, but it just mangled his knee. Oh, I thought almost everybody in the family. And after that, there were all these trips to the doctor and hospitals, and there was one trip they had to make all the way to Harrisburg. And that was a long distance in those days. They had to hire somebody. There were very few cars. And there was no train from Sagamore that went to Harrisburg. But there was a family in Sagamore that had a car, and they agreed for a certain price to take my father and mother out and with my brother to the hospital. So we got him in there. Then they did a lot for him. They straightened his leg. His leg was real crooked. The first, I don't remember who the first doctor was. And after they straightened that out, and then they put his leg in a brace, you know, with something covering here and two braces going down, and a high heel about that much higher than a normal heel. And so he walked with that for the longest time. And then,
how old was he when that happened? Do you remember?
When it happened, he must have been about 6 years old.
6 years old?
When the accident hit. And how he got away from the house, my mother used to say she doesn't know how he got away. And he went with the older boys to this bony dump.
So you were only 4 when that happened,
I'd
right?
say around 4,
So mostly what you remember is what they told you?
Well, no.
You remember that?
This I'm telling you about the hospital. I remember that. Because on one trip, I went with my mother and father. In fact, your mother was just a little baby. And I went, and my mother wanted me to go, but she told my father that Andy can come with us, and he'll hold Dorothy on his lap in the car in the back seat, which I did for a little while. But I wanted to go so bad, so I got to go on that trip. And we got to see him. But anyhow, after that, he came home, and I can't put this into sequence how these things happened, but then he got real sick when he was 15 years old. And the company doctor came to the house to check him over, and he said, well, he's got an upset stomach, or at that time us kids used to eat green apples. And my mother thought, Grandma, that he ate too many green apples and got a stomach ache. And so the wind-up was he got a ruptured appendix. And they rushed him to the Canning Hospital and operated, but I guess it was too late because gangrene set in. And then he lived about 3 days after the operation, and he died. And,
Did he come out of the operation? Was he conscious?
yeah, he was conscious, and we were there. I was there one night with my parents, and he just kept begging for water. They would not give him any liquid. And he said, get me even a cone of ice cream or anything. He wanted to quench his thirst. And then the next day he died. I remember that so vividly, that incident there. So,
what was your favorite food that Grandma used to cook?
Yeah.
If you could pick one, if you had to pick one favorite.
One favorite, I have to say, but I have a couple. But my favorite was her chicken soup.
Chicken soup.
Yeah, chicken noodle soup. That was my favorite. And
Homemade noodles.
yeah, of course, yeah, homemade noodles. Everything was homemade for us, Susan. You know, we didn't buy anything in the store. I didn't know there were other kind of noodles in those days.
And what were some of the other foods that were favorite?
Some of the other foods, I liked her rabbit sour. I don't know, you probably heard of rabbit sour, but I don't know if your mother made it or if you tasted it. In fact, Aunt Peggy made it here last week when Mona was home with us, and she really liked it. She made those dumplings, then it's made in sour cream, and very good. I like that. And of course, I liked her bolutki, stuffed cabbages. Yeah, I really did.
Okay. Describe your mom and dad to someone who's never met them before. If you had to describe what they were like to a stranger.
Very strict in every sense of the word. And I don't know, I can't say like for affection. They didn't show much affection. You know, I think they were going back to the way they were brought up. And that was, although as children, I don't know if we thought of that. I just thought of that later in life.
There was nothing out of the ordinary when you were growing up.
No,
you didn't know any different.
That's right. And everybody in that town acted the same way. That's the way I often said about the Depression. We didn't know at that time we were going through a depression when we were children because of this. We knew certain little things, like I say, about the things you could buy from the store, which we didn't have. And we didn't know the word depression. We didn't hear that word. We just thought we were poor, and that was it. We had to have the animals and depend on the garden. See, and Grandpa had a sort of an acre of ground outside of town, and we raised that whole field of potatoes for the cattle, for the hogs. See, and then of course we had them for ourselves too. But that's how we got the food for the hogs, and that's how we got the meat. And when the cow had a calf, then we had veal. Of course, we had all our milk, which we didn't have to go to the store for. It was all hard work. That's what it boiled down to. Yeah.
Okay, what do you miss most about Grandma and Grandpa, your mom and dad?
Well, when Grandpa died, it was so sudden. It was a terrible shock. And because I'd only seen him 2 days before that. And he seemed to be in good spirits, and although we knew he had this condition. And it was just a big shock, and I don't know how else to describe it. But when Grandma died, we expected it already. So when Grandpa died, it was so sudden. Grandma told me they were sitting, they had that beer store there, and he was on one side of the counter and she was on the other side, and she said they were just talking, and he suddenly slumped down. He must have died suddenly, you know, massive heart attack. And
is there anything you miss about either of them, though?
well, sure. Yeah, I'd miss my father by coming home to visit, and I'd talk to him, we'd have long talks, and we'd like to have a drink, and we'd have a couple of beers together, and so many things. But I think I go back further in my youth when I went everywhere with him, hunting and working with him, and those types of things.
Okay, one more question. If your mother and father were here right now, sitting beside you, what would you say to them?
What would I say?
You're right here with us at this reunion. What would you say?
I'd probably say, oh, Dad, I'm so glad to see you, and Mom, I'm so glad to see you, and give her a big hug. And it's just hard to say anything much more than that.
Okay, is there anything else you want to add on community?
I don't think, Susan. If I was more prepared for this, I could have maybe gone back to my memory and tried to bring something together.
Well, you did very well.
Oh, well, thank you.
Okay, I have one more thing I want you to do before you go. And I want you to sign your name across this paper, the whole way across.
Oh, just
Could you
Your
use the big
signature.
black magic marker?
I
You don't have
with
it.
me. I have this black one.
It'll probably work.
this one.
It'll
It's
probably.
pretty thick.
Okay.
Yeah, it's as big as you can to go the whole way across your signature.
At one time I was known as Junior. Should I put that on?
If you'd like to, sure. Okay. Return that. No, we're done. Okay. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay, you ready for the next one? Are
Ready
you
for the
fading in
next
and
one.
out?
Yeah.
Is that what you're doing?
Mm-hmm. Now don't lose those. We'll put a.
Okay, we're on.
They're on.
Okay, first of all,
Shall I look there?
No, you
Or
can
at
look
you?
wherever you want.
Look, whatever. Don't even think about the camera.
Okay.
Can I ask you how old you are, first of all?
Yes, well, it's in the book. My kids are all going to know. I've tried to keep it a secret all these years. I just turned 72 in August.
Okay. Okay, the first question I have for you is, when you think about your mother and father, is there one particular memory that comes to mind the most, that's the strongest? Do you have a favorite memory of them?
Well, I don't know about a favorite, but my mother was a very strong woman, and she was a very, very good mother. She was very persevering, worked hard all her life. Is this the right stuff you want to hear?
Just talk a little bit louder.
A
little bit louder?
Okay. Just, when somebody maybe mentions their name, do you have a particular memory? What comes to your mind first when you think about it?
Very, very caring and very concerned about all her children all the time, and always wanted the best for them.
And your dad?
Dad was a very strong-willed person. He was a good father, but I thought he was sometimes overly strict with some of the children. He had his ideas of what and how we should behave and what we should do.
In what ways was he real overly strict?
Well, as far as I was concerned, he was, because I was about the first one that was sent away from home to earn money so that I could send money home to help with the family. And anytime I come home, I had the reputation of being, the city girl. She came home from the city. And I remember one instance where I was home and one of the boys was just born. Dad had a habit of going through my things. And he found a pack of cigarettes in my purse. And he had to run down and show it to my mother, and I felt very, very sad and bad for her. Because here she was, had just given birth to this new baby. And I can see her sitting there, whether she was nursing or whatever. He said, Russia, that's true.
look at this. And, oh, I was so angry that he had to do that. And especially, he could have came to me, you know. But he had to run down and tell her.
And that's what he called her, Rosa.
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 And what did she call him?
Andreas.
Okay, Aunt Betty, what was it like for you as a child growing up in your household?
Wonderful. I had a wonderful childhood. Very happy childhood. Roaming around Sagamore Hills and berry picking and whatnot, and coming home and Mom would have all these pies and things baked, and always had a good meal for us. I remember one day she sent us out for huckleberries, and oh, it was a big thing. We all had to get up at 5 in the morning, and we went down somewhere, I don't know where we picked them. But we were gone all day, and we came home, and Mom was standing at the gate, and she, oh, oh, here comes my Lizzie. You know, they called me Lizzie. And, you know, very concerned about us, and worried that we ran into some trouble up in the mountains or woods or wherever this was where we were picking these blueberries. What else?
Was there a favorite story that Grandma and Grandpa used to tell? Do you remember any particular story?
No, I don't remember any particular stories, because as you remember, as I have said, I lived at home until I was 15, maybe going on 6. I didn't spend my 16th birthday at home because I had already been shipped out, as I call it. And they took me to New Jersey to find a job, which was very traumatic after when I realized what had happened, because I was taken out of high school. I had just graduated my sophomore year, and I had very promising outlooks for my life. My teachers all felt bad that they were taking me out of school. So with that, I didn't really spend that much time at home. Where you know the normal children at least stay home until they graduate high school, and even maybe while they're going to college sometimes, they're closer to home. But am I getting off track here?
That's fine.
I think I bypassed something. What was that first question, the initial question that got me started?
They had a favorite story they used to tell.
Oh, well, how did I get off on me now?
That's okay.
Oh, yes. Well, the reason I got on this is that I don't remember any favorite stories because I really wasn't there that long. And then, of course, I came home every year or whenever I took that time off to come visit. So, basically, my childhood in Sagamore was just 15 years. I didn't leave. I was taken out to work.
Where did you go?
Well, Mom first took me to New Jersey because we had some relatives there. And then somehow they heard about something in Brooklyn. Now here I am, a young girl. I didn't even have my 16th birthday yet because this is in June, and my 16th birthday was going to be in August. So anyway, somehow or other I got to Brooklyn, to this total big, huge city, which, taking a young girl out of the country, I was devastated. I was so homesick. And I got a job with some family there. I don't know how I got it, but I guess it was all prearranged somehow. Somebody knew somebody that needed a young girl to help with the cooking and with watching the children and stuff like that.
Were you glad you were there? Did you enjoy it? No.
I resented it very much. And I was very homesick. So shall I continue this? Because now I'm talking about myself.
Okay. Well, if you want to, is there anything else you want to add to that part of your life?
Well, I'll just get that down short and sweet. after that, it was one job after another until I finally got into Westinghouse. I got a job there. And it was like when World War II was breaking out, so it was very busy and they were hiring everybody. And I worked there for 4 years. And then I left and I finished my high school, got my diploma, and took up nurse's training. I went to a night school while I was, let's see, am I contradicting myself here? I worked in Westinghouse for 4 years. And then I left and I finished my high school. Got a high school equivalency and studied nursing. And then I worked as a private duty nurse, thither, various homes. So what's your next question?
Okay, we can move on then. What do you remember about Johnny?
Oh, I remember a lot about Johnny.
How old were you when he died?
Well, we were just talking about that the other day. I think I may have been about 11. Because he was 15. And I think there's only about a year or something between him and Andy, and then I'm below Andy. So I would say I was about 11. He was a very handsome young man, boy, I should say. And of course he had this, what we called a peg leg in those days, and you know about that. I guess everybody does. Do you want me to tell my version?
Yes.
Well, it seemed that Mom had sent him out to play, and we had an enclosed yard as far as children running out in the street or disappearing from the property.
How old was he then?
He was 4, I think. I seem to remember him saying he was about 4 years old.
And then how did the accident happen?
Well, there were a couple of boys that came along with a wagon and coaxed Johnny out of the yard, and my mother didn't know anything about this. And they took him for a ride in the wagon, and they wound up down there, you know, the railroad tracks below our house in Sagamore. And so here's this little kid sitting in a wagon like a sitting duck, and the older boys went back and were fooling around with the coal cars, and they released the switch on the coal cars and ran over Johnny's leg. Is that what you heard?
That's what I'm wondering.
Oh, okay.
See, I never knew that.
Didn't you?
Oh, I never knew that part of his life.
Oh, your mother doesn't remember that?
Maybe she told me and I just don't remember that.
Well then, you know, as you might expect, it was going around with hospitals and treatments and whatnot. And they finally sent him home with a brace on his leg. And it was funny, everybody called him peg leg in school, you know. And I could see him to this day, the way he'd come hobbling down from school and hobbling down to the house. You know how they walk when they have a bad leg? But then when he was 15, what we now know is he had an attack of appendicitis, which was not only an attack of appendicitis, it was ruptured. And the company doctor that we had, I think it was Dr. McColgan, used to come to the house, and Johnny just laid upstairs. It was in the summertime, it was very hot. Everybody's windows were open, and that poor boy just screamed in agony. I think this went on for about 3 or 4 nights. They could hear him all the way down the end of the street. And Dad would come home from work all dirty. I remember, you know how he came home from work with the whole wet all over. And the first thing he'd say to Mom, you know, I'm so lucky. He said, how was she? I said, no, it's not good. But and Dad would go off and he'd be upstairs. So then, finally, my mother pleaded with the doctor. he needs something more. We should take him to the hospital. And then he finally consented, and he took him to the hospital. He was lying with probably third night, that already set in, laying at home all those nights. And he died in the hospital. And I can remember, we had no telephone. There was a telephone at the company store. And somebody came in, and I was sitting on the back. Am I talking loud enough?
Yeah, I think you are.
Mom and I were sitting on the back porch. We were doing either shelling beans or cleaning some vegetables in the garden. And somebody came to the house and said, we got a telegram that your son died. And that was that. And he was laid out in the house. Did Angie tell you that?
No.
He was laid out in the house, and he had one of those black things on the front door like a wreath. And everybody came to the house, and all the men kept an all-night vigil during the late, I don't know, those 2 or 3 days. And, you know, they kept them long then because relatives had to come. We had a lot of relatives in New Jersey. And I can remember the funeral up in the big Catholic church. And as we were coming down the stairs from the church, I get all sick. No, I get all too when I tell this. Mom was crying so hard. And Dad was trying to console her. And he said, Rosa, ustos. You know, stop crying already. So, that's the way that was.
Do you have a favorite food that Grandma used to cook? You had to pick one favorite food.
You have to pick one? Oh, I don't know. I loved all her food. Let me just get a tissue here.
Or are there a couple of foods? You can't narrow it down to one. What did you like the best? Cooked or baked?
Yes, well, I can't see the tissue, but it's okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, she used to bake so many nice things. And we used to come home from school for lunch, because we lived right outside of the school. I could look out the window and see Mom hanging up the laundry. Really? And she'd always have a nice warm lunch for us, whatever it was she made. But one of the nicest things was when she made potato cake. That was so delicious, and we loved it. But then we always compared hers with Mrs. Markavich.
Whose was better?
Because they called theirs koshi, you know. And it would be big fat pieces that they made, and Mom's were just, you know, I guess made them thin and cut them smaller to go around. But yeah, that was delicious.
Okay.
I can't say that there was a favorite food, but I really loved everything she made. And we'd sit down to eat dinner, or supper as they called it. And Mom always had a nice pot of coffee after supper. She'd say, Lisa, don't you want some coffee? And I said, no, Mom, I don't want to spoil the taste of that good meal I had with coffee.
Okay. If you had to describe your mother and father to someone who'd never met them before, how would you describe them?
You never met them before? You mean appearance-wise, or?
In any way.
They were both very hard-working people, and they cared very much about their children and wanted the best for all of them. They were very good parents. They were good Catholics, and they brought us up to respect other people's views and to know right from wrong. I would say, I would rate my mother close to a saint. Not not my father. I mean, he was a good man, but he was very strict and sometimes gave us all a hard time. I have a funny story, but I don't think I'd want to tell it, about something he did to me. Well, I was naughty.
Tell, please.
Want me to tell?
Yes, I do.
Well, I don't know how old I was, but obviously I was old enough to go to the store down the street to Kemble. Have you heard of Kemble? And so they gave me some money to buy whatever it was I had to buy, and I came home. But on my way home, I'm thinking to myself, gee, they had all that nice candy down there, but they'll never let me buy any candy. So the change I had, before I walked in the door, I stuck in my candy.
So you could later go back to the candy.
Right.
And did they find out?
As I'm walking through the room, you know, I'm a little girl, but old enough to know that this could buy me some candy. It started to jingle as I walked. My dad jumped up and he was furious. He picked me up. I could see him today, and he pushing me up to the ceiling. As, you know, like you would shake a child, but he was so angry he didn't know what to do with me. I'll never forget that. That was you know, to think that I would take some change and not bring it home. I just thought kids do that sometimes. I know Mother used to send me down to the company store when I was already a bigger girl. And, I loved those Eskimo pies they had down there. So I used to get myself a little Eskimo pie coming home. Mom didn't say anything. Well, she didn't kind of change too close. Am I talking too loud? Too long?
Is she loud enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you miss most about your mom and dad?
I don't think I miss my dad as much as I miss my mother.
What do you miss most about your mom?
Somebody that was always so warm and loving and a good listener, and she loved to talk with people. Yeah, I don't think, well, I don't know about the rest of the family, but I would really go out of my way and listen to all these stories. And really talk with us hours. When I would be home on vacation, we would sit out in the front porch and just talk and talk about everything. She was a very good listener. She also liked to hear all about education, what they were doing in their lives.
One for you.
Oh, wow.
If your mother and father were here right now and they were sitting next to you, what would you say to them?
What would I say to him? That's the hard one. I don't know what I would say to them.
Right here with our reunion, if they could be here.
Right
they're
here?
sitting right here, right
Well,
now.
I would say,
If you could look over and see
I'd
them.
say, Mom, look, this is all yours and Dad's beginning. Look at the wonderful family you have, and you have so much to be proud of. They're all good looking, healthy, strong. They've grown up to be wonderful citizens of the United States. And you have a lot to be proud of.
Is there anything else you want to add before we end?
I don't think so. I think we've covered pretty much. I don't want to monopolize this thing.
Okay, the last thing I have for you to do is I want you to sign your name if you would, please.
And what are you going to do with this?
This is going to be just after you've spoken. I want your signature to appear after here, so I want you to just sign your name as you usually do, just all the way across here. So it'll fit the whole way across.
Okay.
It doesn't have to fit the whole way.
Just nice and big.
Shall I do my maiden and marriage name?
However you sign your name. However you
Well,
guys
you just use your marriage name, right? Oh, we're finished? Okay.
Yeah. This is just going to be on the tape. It will appear after everybody's, interview. Okay? Okay. Okay, we're on. First of all, Mimi, can I ask you how old you are?
I just had a birthday, August 13th.
69. Okay. All right. First question is, when you think about Grandma and Grandpa,
Susan, could you talk a little bit louder?
when you think about your mother and father, is there one particular memory that comes to mind right away?
No, not really.
Do you have a favorite memory of them? If you had to pick one memory that you remember of your past with them, is there anything but favorite?
I should have some time to think about that. Well, I have a lot of happy memories. You don't mean when my dad was living.
Anything, sure, any memory.
What
What's that in your mind
I used to enjoy lots when my dad, when they used to have a weddings, in town, and they always used to come and ask my dad to be something like a best man or something, they called it, and then we used to go to the weddings, and he was always the life of the party. He was always singing and just happy-go-lucky all the time.
How about Grandma?
And Grandma too, we all went. And the happy times with Grandma, well, naturally, all the times were happy just being with her, But we used to sit and talk for hours. Like even after I left home when I was married, we'd come home, and Mom and I would just sit there for hours and talk about everything and anything. She was so easy to talk with, and she was so smart in many ways. She was, so intelligent for not having much of an education, coming from Europe at such a young age. She really educated herself very well.
What was it like for you as a child growing up? What do you remember?
Oh, the good times we had. We used to playing out with the kids and
Your brothers and sisters and other kids?
and other kids, neighbors. They were good times, even though we didn't have much to do. We used to play ball. We had a big field out there. Back of the school in Sagamore. We used to play softball, I guess it was, or baseball. And as kids, we had big empty houses there in town. Like if somebody moved out, there was one house in particular that we used to use it like the playhouse or play school. We would pretend we were teachers and we'd all have a classroom, and what these kids are. And sitting out on the swings at night, we used to sing. You could hear us all over town. And I had this one special girlfriend. She used to sing a lot of these cowboy songs. She was a very good singer for her brother. In fact, they used to go sing at a lot of the fairs where the miners had reunions. And she used to come over in the evenings and would sit there on the swing and swing and sing all those cowboy songs she knew, and then just the friends and neighbors.
Is there a favorite story that Grandma and Grandpa used to tell that you could share with me? Did they ever speak of any particular time in their life or something that happened to them in the past? Do you remember any stories?
Particular, especially. There were so many things.
Before they came to America, maybe? Did they ever talk about things that happened to them in Czechoslovakia?
Oh, my mother always talked about how she came to America. She used to work with cleaning houses and things, taking care of kids.
When she first came over?
She came over. And they got married in New Jersey. In fact, I still have the trunk. I have the trunk when she got married. She bought it in Bamberger's, and that's what she used when she came from New Jersey to Pennsylvania. It's the original trunk. I treasure that. I did it over instead.
What was their wedding like? What was she talking about?
They just got married and came directly to Pennsylvania, as I understand. Yeah. Didn't have any engagement rings and anything.
about Johnny?
Well, I don't remember. Well, let's see. I don't remember that much, too much about him.
How old were you when he died?
I don't really know how old I was.
Do you remember him in your household?
I remember him. Oh yeah, I remember us kids playing around and stuff. And I remember when he was sick. All I can remember is hearing him scream and it was very vague actually what happened. It was very sick. And I remember him laid out at home in the living room. And as kids just playing around. Nothing too bad. He was a nice looking boy. Yeah.
Color was his hair?
I think it was more dark, something like Billy. And it was I think it was a little curly too. But I have a little wave to my hair too.
So, okay. What was your favorite food that Grandma used to cook?
Potato pancakes.
Okay.
Yeah, but everything she made was delicious. I used to like her roast chicken when she made it, fried chicken. But I remember potato pancakes. We'd come home from school and she'd have a big batch of them made up.
That was good. If you had to describe your mom and dad to someone who had never met them before, how would you describe them?
Very loving, caring parents. Hardworking. Mother used to work hard. She used to wash clothes, rub them by hand. Scrubbing the floors. We had those wooden floors. And we used to have too, but I think that's where she got her arthritis. She used to kneel on those hard floors, scrubbing them with, even putting lye in the water to make them white. And we all had our chores to do, and we did them. She did all the cooking. She taught me how to bathe. It wasn't for her half the things, you know, I learned as you know.
Okay, what do you miss most about your mom and dad?
Words can't describe how much I miss him.
Do you miss your dad too? Even though he's been gone a long while.
Really? Yeah. What else did you say?
What you miss most about them? That's kind of a hard question.
Yeah, it is. Just coming home and seeing them and being with them. It's shocking my dad died, though. So sudden. He had his whole life ahead of him. And my dad always used to say to me, like when I was in New Jersey and I'd come home, and he was like only in his 40s then. Oh, Meadow, he'd say, I'm getting old in Slovak. And I said, oh, Dad, you're just starting to live. You know, life begins at 40. Yeah.
Okay,
And I miss my mom's kindness and wisdom and, you know, everything like that.
just being there to talk to you. One more question for you, Nancy. If they were here right now, sitting next to you, what would you say to them?
Oh, what I said, I miss you, I love you. Wish you could be with us.
What do you think they'd say if they could be here with all the family, see the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren?
They would be so pleased, really. Just beautiful, wonderful. Too bad they couldn't get to see all their grandchildren. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Oh, I guess that's
Any
all.
memories or any?
Memories? The my dad, I remember when he worked in the mines, I don't know if anybody ever say this, but when he'd come home from work, we used to open his bucket, he'd bring his bucket, oh, look at me. We'd open his bucket and to see if he had any goodies left. He'd always try to leave something in his bucket for us, you know, like if it was maybe a cake or something that, and I think he purposely did it because, you know, to have something for us.
So who got it? Whoever opened it first?
And anyway, at the time he went away, a few times he worked out of town. He'd stop in the 5 and 10, I think it was in Indiana, and he'd bring us a bag of these heart-shaped, these peach candies. Oh, and we used to go crazy over them. And he'd always bring us a little something. In those days, that was a treat, you know, the kids, your dad came home and brought you something. He always tried to bring us something.
I think my mom used to talk about that too, about the bucket.
Yeah. Good looking lunch bucket.
Okay. Aunt Mary, I would like you to sign your name on this paper. Just all as big as you can across here. Just your signature, how you usually sign it.
With maiden name tab or just...
However you sign your name.
Oh.
You turn it sideways.
Okay, Barbara.
Thank you very
You
much.
did a good job. Well, you made me cry.
I bet he made me cry too.
Did she?
Before, yeah.
Oh, yeah. She knows some good stories.
Yeah. Start eating. On. Okay. First of all, can I ask you how old you are, Aunt?
A little bit.
Okay. Aunt Rose, when you think about your mom and dad, what stands out in your mind the most? Is there a favorite memory? Is there anything that comes to mind that, you know, that's more dominant than something else?
It's sort of a question. I think like a little anecdote or something, you mean?
Like a favorite memory.
Well, one of my fathers, he didn't tend to think of my mother so much because she was around longer, you know. But one of my very special memories of my father is I was sick, and I think I had rheumatic fever at the time, and I was in first grade when I got sick like that, and I was in the upstairs, you know, upstairs bedroom, and he came home from work. You know, he worked in the mines, and as soon as he would come home, he would get a bath because they, you know, it was really dirty. And this particular day, he came straight up the steps, and I could see him so nervous, which I thought was odd because he was coming up the steps to the bedrooms in his work clothes. And he just wanted to see how I was. I remember that feeling so good because everybody went to school. I was all alone laying there. And at the time they didn't know what it was I had. I was very weak, and so apparently I had to stay in bed. And I was just so overjoyed to see him. Just to see me. And that was a special memory. And my mother, one of my favorite memories is, you know, that her dad worked for the company in Bayer, the mill. And the people who owned it, the man would come around for orders for food. And my mother used to buy a lot of flour from him and different things. And at Christmas, she'd be ordering the Christmas candy. And I was older and I could hear and knew what was going on. And but she was ordering all this special stuff for us for Christmas, and I had to keep it secret. You know, so the others didn't, you know, because I didn't want to tell the kids what was going to be. And that's what we made eye contact, you know, and I knew that I was not safe. And that was you know, an unusual memory, but so much, you know, the goodness, how much they cared about us, and compared to other kids, we were given food and good meals, good food, and it was, at the time we didn't realize it, but I know that one of my girlfriends would tell me when she came over a piece of cake from her husband, and I had this, whether it was stew or chili or something, my mother prepared for us at lunch. I think those, you don't realize it as a child, but as you grow up. So those are, that we were loved, we were taken care of, even though nobody said it, like we do with our kids. Say, I love you. There's the show.
What was it like for you as a child growing up in your household?
Well, for me, I was very, very busy, and my younger years, I don't remember too much, playing. Is that what you mean? Like,
Anything.
going to the up the cow hill into the woods, picking berries, playing in the playhouse, making lettuce sandwiches, and things like that. I was happy, and Uncle Ed, grew up in a similar background as I did, and he sometimes talked, and his life was so rich. So I couldn't say I was odd, it was odd or anything.
Okay. Is there a favorite story that Grandma and Grandpa used to tell that you remember?
I'll be honest with you, a lot of my past is, I'm only now starting to think about it because I have time and having worked for so many years, and I find myself now.
How about before they came to America even? Did they ever talk about their life in Czechoslovakia?
Oh, yeah. My mother, I forget what you call it, so they would tear feathers off, to make, pillows also, that big blanket. Perina.
Yeah.
Perina. And they would, I think my mother earned a little bit of money doing this in other people's house, and they would sit around and do this.
This is before she came over?
Oh, yes, this is when she was a little girl. This is what she did. And it was parapiles, I think that's what they called it. And her school, that every time whether they called her the principal or what, but if someone important came to school, she was called on to recite. She told me this many times, and I feel that Grandma was very, I know she was bright, but I feel that in school she was probably, one of the ones that taught me.
And how far did she go to school?
I don't know.
See, I don't remember anyone ever talking about her going
It
to
had to be
school.
fun. Oh, she went to school. She went through 6th grade. That was the end.
To talk louder.
Yeah, okay.
How about when she came across to America? Did she ever talk about her trip on the boat?
Yes. It was horrible.
Then what did she say?
Like seasick. If she's ever been seasick, she was seasick and frightened. She had no idea what to expect, and at a young age to be doing this. And I mean, you could just imagine, what it must have been like, because they were coming at the probably low rate, you know what I mean? They didn't have the luxury of being on the deck and so forth.
Okay. What do you remember about Johnny and Rose?
I do not remember very much about it.
How about stories that someone else has told about Johnny?
Well, not too much. I just remember when he was laid out. It was in our house.
In your living room?
And I think it was the day that I made my first communion. I'm almost positive it was. And I had meant to check that. I could very easily check it. And
You mean the day when he was laid out?
somehow or other that's in the, in my mind. It's something of that nature. Although I could be wrong, on that. And the day of the funeral in the Free Catholic Church, my Aunt Annie had Mimi on one side of her and me on the other side. We had these identical dresses but different colors. And that's just about all I remember. Maybe I was about 6 years. 6.
Did you have a favorite food that Grandma used to cook? If you had to pick one food, what was your favorite?
Definitely wasn't the dough.
None of them?
I couldn't handle them. I could not handle them. Other than that, I think I liked everything. Because she made a variety and baked goods, and it's all very good. And in my childhood, I do not remember anybody saying I don't like, except myself, and I couldn't handle the dough. That's all. I just...
So no favorite food?
Not especially, I don't think so.
Okay.
Because we had a variety of things.
Describe your mom and dad to someone who's never met them before.
I was just talking to Roseanne about this. Oh, gee. I think my mother was the domineering type of, like many wives, let's put it this way. She would, especially if it was some where he had to be gentle around the children, she'd have to remind him, And, I don't know how to describe them as a couple. Is that what you mean?
If you had to describe what they were like in any way, physically, their personalities, to someone who's never met them before.
Well, my mother was
qualities?
I felt she was very bright, and that had she had opportunities, she would have gone on to be. I picture my mother as maybe being playing the piano, not doing ordinary things, difficult things. She could have overcome. And I remember them going to night school, learning to read. And
how old would they have been then?
Well, if I can remember it, I'd say maybe I was 6 or 7 years old at that point. And they had these little readers that first grade kids have, and they would have to learn
at
to
the
read.
school, at the same school?
They would at night. And then we would teach them, help them. Yeah. And something interesting also is that, like, Andy, Mary, and Betty left home at earlier ages. I was home until I was 18, and then after me, the rest of the family was. So I got to know them as I was, a little older, too, And they're very strict, very strict. A lot of my girlfriends were allowed to go places, and I was not. And I was allowed to go to school activities, more so than I was a teenager. There were always Saturday night dances. And one of my pleasant memories is as soon as I became 16, my mother said I should learn to drive, which, I think at that day and age, she was really with it. And I did. She would go.
You're driving. Learning to drive. The question was about to describe what they were like to someone that had never met them before. Okay, we're on. But you're driving. You said Grandma never drove. Did your father drive? They never did?
He did later on. But at that time.
So you learned to drive before either of them did?
My mother never did learn to drive.
Right, okay. And did you ever take your father anywhere when you drove?
Well, see, Andy was the driver.
Okay.
When we first got a car, Andy was the driver. And then Andy went to the war, went to the service, and immediately to the war. Are we on?
Yeah, we're still on.
Okay. So somebody had to drive the car. So as soon as I became 16, one of our neighbors taught me how to
Because Betty was gone. And Mary too. So then you took over the chauffeur.
And so we're shopping wherever we had to go. And I think my father, well then Paul was 2 years behind me, and he, took over. And at some point after that, my dad learned to drive.
miss most about Grandma and Grandpa?
You miss your parents. You miss them so much. I felt that when my dad died, I was expecting joy. And we were home that Christmas, and that was the last time I saw him. And I didn't tell him. I thought I was pregnant, but I wasn't sure, and I hadn't told him yet. But he was always very happy when he found out he was going to be a grandfather again. And
What do you miss most about them?
I miss that he didn't, and my kids didn't get to know their grandfather because Dad's father had died, so they had no grandfather. And I thought, as a child, I miss not having a grandmother. I had a very good girlfriend that we lived in her grandmother's house, and I was her grandmother's house. And my mother, I think there's still things I'd like to ask her.
You just miss her not being there to talk. One more. If they were here right now sitting next to you, what would you say to them?
Oh, I don't know. I kidded around with my mother and my father. And my mother, when I'd call her on the phone, it would be about 5 minutes of silly, slow-walk talk. And, half of it I didn't know if I was saying right. And, my father was very serious. And in my adult years, I got him to laugh. And it's interesting how I was able to talk to him. Sometimes I scolded him. Like he scolded me as a child. And I didn't know what I'd say to them. It would just be I did tell them I loved them. I'm glad that I did that. And that was in my adult life. I don't remember as a child how I ever said it.
What do you think they would say if they were here and they would see the whole family?
Oh, they would be so happy. Oh, we did the last reunion that we had. Delighted. She loved to see her kids. We all congregated at home, remember the pictures when you kids were little. We were all home at the same time. And I know that my mother was exhausted when we all left. Glad we left.
Glad when they come.
She used to look over and,
Okay. Is there anything you want to add?
No, I don't think so.
Thank you very much. I want you to sign your name on this paper. Just however you usually sign your name, right across the middle.
You're not going to use this to forge anything, are you?
I didn't think of that. So our list of credits. Do you want her to get up now? Can we hold it here?
No, not yet.
No, Dad. We probably, people are hungry.
Well, I don't know if we're
You can
going
run over there real quick.
Well, we're going to wait because we want to try and get the group photo and then we'll stand
You are.
Okay, Uncle Paul, first of all, can I ask you how old you are?
65.
Okay. Okay, the first question is, when you think about your mother and father, what stands out in your mind the most? Is there a favorite memory that you have of them?
Well, right offhand, I nothing really that comes to my mind that's outstanding is, something that was really special or something like that I can think of. Really, I'd have to say I really can't think of anything. So.
Okay, you don't have a strongest memory of either of them, of your dad? You can't picture them doing something that, you really... When you think of your mom, does anything come to mind that would kind of represent who she was or what she was? Or...
Well, like I say, anything specific, but the only thing I can really remember that would stick out in my mind was, and this is being much younger, when we used to have to say our prayers, and it's always she sat at the kitchen table, and we knelt down with our hands up on the table, and we learned all of our prayers in Slavonic. It wasn't English like
Viochenash, Bohorodice, Viruyu. That really sticks out in my mind. And then when we said our evening prayers, that was what we said. It wasn't an Our Father, a Hail Mary, or an act of contrition or anything. It was always the Our Father and Hail Mary and everything in Slavonic.
I'm glad you said that. No one else has mentioned that. Okay. What was it like for you as a child when you were growing up in your household?
Well, being in between two girls on either side.
Which was who?
Which, well,
Aunt Rose?
Aunt Rose, and then, well, Aunt Mary wasn't there as much because she left pretty early, but Rose was at home till she graduated, and then after me was Aunt Helen and Aunt Dorothy, and there was a lot of things that was done that was more or less, you'd say, man's work, where it wasn't, you know, for the women to do, and by that I mean went out, got the cow every morning before school, brought it in, milked it, took the cow back in, then come in and had breakfast and got washed up and went to school. And same thing in the evening was go get the cow, bring it in, milk it and take it out. And then in the wintertime, when the cow was in the barn, you had to clean out the barn, then milk the cow, and the process was repeated at night.
So since you were the boy, you had to
Yes.
do all that.
And the thing that I can remember so clear is my last year in high school when I graduated, and I graduated in Maine, and I went to Michigan to work in July. Very shortly we got rid of the cow. We didn't have a cow anymore. So that sort of sticks in my mind, you know, is just some of the things. And well, of course there was others that I'm sure a lot of the older ones and even the younger ones remember when we used to have the farm down Sykes, and by that I mean the company had ground down there, and whoever wanted, they gave them a plot of ground, and that was theirs to plant. So actually they'd get some farmer to come in and plow it, and then that's where we planted all our stuff like potatoes, corn for chickens, and that sticks out in my mind is everybody talks about down Sykes, and by that meant that we were going down in the field to work, and that was either picking potato buds or off of the potatoes, and going down hoeing, doing the weeding and stuff like that. And I'm sure Andy, that is pretty vivid in his mind too, because that was started back when he was younger yet.
Okay. Is there a favorite story that Grandma and Grandpa used to tell that you could share with me? Maybe when they were first married, or did they ever talk about anything over and over? Do you remember any story?
As a favorite story, no, but I can remember them talking. This was before they came to America, about how it was in the old country when they used to go out in the fields and the women were working right along with the men, and you know, as far as harvesting the crops and things like that. But nothing comes to my mind is, you know, any one special thing that, you know, that would sort of be like a favorite story that they, you know, enjoyed telling, that at least that I can remember. So.
Okay. What do you remember about Johnny, or anybody saying about Johnny?
Well, I can remember, I think I was about 5 years old when Johnny died. And I can, the only two things that I can remember actually about Johnny was the casket being in the house. And I think I was only about that high.
Was it open or closed?
It was open.
Open casket.
I'm almost certain it was, to my memory. And me just standing there and just being able to look in. And then the other thing that sticks in my mind, and that more than anything, that, you know, if a bunch of kids were playing or something and they were running, and Johnny running and like having to drag his leg along because, you know, he just didn't have normal use of the leg. But that really is the only two things that I can remember of Johnny.
Okay, good. Okay, what was your favorite food that Grandma used to cook?
My favorite food? Oh, a lot of the stuff that she made was so good, but if I would say, to me, if I had to pick a favorite out of all of them, with beef potato pancakes. And one other thing that I wouldn't say it was a favorite food, but I always remembered when it was her birthday, and she would ask us, she'd bake us a cake, what we wanted. And I always remember the name of Lord Baltimore cake. And it was a cake with a filling that she put between the two layers that she made. And to me, that was a treat, yeah.
I think my mom talked about that too.
Oh, did she?
I remember that. Okay, if you could describe your mom and dad to someone who's never met them before, ever, how would you describe them? Either physically, their characteristics, personality, what they stood for, you know, how would you describe them?
Well, hardworking, dedicated to their children, sometimes a little stern, but maybe for our own good, I suppose. But that would basically be it, because again, getting back to the other things, that some of the things that we mentioned before would, as soon as it come from, especially Dad, would come from work, that it was out into the garden, whether it was hoeing, weeding, or whatever, and that's what I mean by hardworking. And I suppose this is getting back to what you asked me before. I think that if one thing that stands out in my mind, and it was, of course, I suppose, starting with maybe Aunt Rose or me down, was that I can remember when I graduated from school, high school, and Mom saying, well, what are you going to do now? And I says, well, I really didn't know. She says, well, I want you to go to school. And by that I mean college. And I says, no, I don't want any part of it.
No one else had gone to college before you?
No.
Okay.
And but she kept insisting that that's what she wanted, and I says, no, I just do not want to go to school anymore. So then, just shortly after that, then I went to Michigan to work, and that was right after the war. And then in 1948, the latter part of 1948, when things start slowing down, then I had to come back home, and that's when I went to work in the coal mines, and that's when maybe I started wishing that maybe I should have gone on to school or something, but
you never did then?
No, never did.
Okay, two more. What do you miss most about your mother and father?
Oh, I guess maybe just being able to sit there and them talk to us, and by that I mean that in a lot of families, you know, maybe after 15-20 minutes or so, just say if you were home for the evening and you talked maybe about a couple of different things, and then you just sort of run out of conversation, you know, and just maybe sat and watched television or whatever, but they were always able to think of some way to carry a conversation that, you know, they made you feel like you were a part of something, not that, you know, they had their own special agenda for the evening or something like that. It seems that they always included you in it, and I'm sure it was that way with the rest of the children.
Okay. If they were here right now, sitting beside you, what would you say to them?
Oh, jak ci jedzie, matko? Which means, well, how's everything going, Mom? And but the thing really is that you could sit again and carry on a conversation, and not so much at the end, but from the earlier years that it was, she almost always done it in Slovak. And you know, I sort of wish at that time I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all that she talked to us, especially if we were out someplace, other people around. And yeah, you just sort of, I don't know, and I don't know for what reason it would, but it just made you feel like you were ashamed or something, that you couldn't talk English like everybody else. But now.
But you could speak both, right?
Yes, but she always talked to us in Slovak for the most part. In later years, no, it was almost all English, but and I guess just that you could sit and talk to her, and my dad too, and I guess that's pretty much it. So.
Okay, I would like you to please, if you would, sign your name across here. Jim's just going to somehow superimpose it on the tape. Just
Write it?
Your signature, however you sign your signature. Just nice and big across there. Okay, very good. And that's it.
Okay,
Sue. Thank you very much.
Okay, my pleasure.
That was great.
Okay.
That was perfect.
Okay. So now who are you ready for?
Did you record a lot on your camcorder?
Then I thought probably because the batteries were going down, I can really charge it.
Okay, we're on?
Yep.
Okay, Aunt Helen, first of all, can I ask you how old you are?
You certainly may. I'm 62.
62. Okay. All right. When you think about Grandma and Grandpa, your mom and dad, is there any particular memory that comes to mind that's a favorite memory?
Well, I have a lot of memories.
Keep the voice up.
Speak loud.
Oh, speak louder. I just remember a few things in particular that stick out in my mind that really bring back memories, I think, of an old-time childhood. Like in particular, when I was very small, I wouldn't even begin to know what age I was, but we lived in the house on 1st Street, and my dad was working away in one of the mining towns. I think maybe it was Russellton, but I just wouldn't know for sure. But when he came home at the end of the week, we were all so glad to see him, and he brought home candy in a paper sack for us, and you know, that was really special. And I remember Mom working hard doing all that canning, and sometimes she would urge us to eat these. I just hated canned green tomatoes, and Mom would can all this stuff, and to me it was sort of sour-like, and I didn't want to eat it, but I felt so bad because Mom had gone to all that work to do it. And then I remember so much Dad's garden, and particularly on 1st Street when we had a brick sidewalk, and I came barreling down the sidewalk one day and fell, and I chipped my tooth, and that's where I had my chipped tooth that I had from when I was little till I was almost 50 years old, and Dr. Dills in Indiana fixed it for me. I never forgot that.
What was it like for you growing up as a child?
Oh, I felt I had everything. I felt I had more than any of the other kids I knew, even though I knew and felt that we were poor. We were never hungry. We were never had to go barefoot, and I just felt we had a wonderful
Some
childhood.
families did.
Oh, yes, I believe there were people like that in our neighborhood. I felt I had a wonderful childhood.
Is there a favorite story that Grandma and Grandpa used to tell? Do you remember anything that they used to go over that they remember from maybe their younger days, or anything that you could tell me about?
No, I'm afraid I just can't think of anything like that in particular.
Or like, did Grandma talk about coming over on the boat? Did you remember any stories about that, or?
I just remember, and I don't know whether it was from Grandma or from her telling someone else about having her money tied around her neck under her clothes, and how once she thought she had lost, I think maybe she had been ill, you know, from the motion sickness of the boat or whatever, and she thought she had lost it, and how afraid she was her dad was going to be angry that she had lost it. But other than that, right off the bat, I can't think.
That's good. Nobody said that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Okay. Do you remember anything about Johnny? Any stories that anybody told you about Johnny that you could tell me?
The only thing I remember, and I'm not sure if I remember it or if somebody told me it, but as far as I can remember, I was 3 years old when Johnny died, and this memory that I think I have, or that someone told me, is of standing in the window of the neighbors. Holmquist lived next door to us, and seeing them taking the casket out of our front room, because they used to bring the bodies home and lay them out in the living room.
So you remember them bringing him in?
No,
going
taking
out
him out
funeral.
to the funeral. Now, as I say, I don't know if I really remember it or if somebody told me, but this is what I think is that I was 3. And
so you don't actually remember his face
No,
or anything like that?
Not at all.
Okay. What was your favorite food that Grandma used to cook?
Oh, I suppose my first favorite food would have to be pierogi, and not the cheese, but the cream. I think. Okay. And probably beef noodle soup would run a close second.
Beef noodle. Okay. Good. Okay. If you had to describe your mother and father to a perfect stranger, someone that had never met them before, how would you describe them?
From when I was younger, or
and however you remember them, or however you had to tell somebody who has no idea who Rose and Andrew Hospodar were. How would you describe them?
Well, I would say perhaps that my father was a little quiet with people he didn't know, a little bit maybe unsure of himself among people that he didn't know, and in particular people that maybe weren't in his same line of work or whatever. Say, for instance, if there was someone who was maybe a lawyer or a teacher, as opposed to a fellow miner and, quote, foreigner. And I would just describe my mother as a very kind and generous and outgoing person. Extremely kind and friendly.
Okay, good. What do you miss most about your mother and father? I mean, I know of course you miss them, they're gone, but what do you miss most?
I guess their companionship, their friend, not friendship, being with them, being able to talk with them.
And if they were here right now, sitting beside you, what would you say to them?
Oh, Mom, hello, Dad. Give them a hug.
How do you think they'd feel if they saw all of us here, all the grandchildren?
I think they'd be able to comprehend it. I think they would just be dumbstruck. Yeah, but this is what they had created.
Okay, is there anything you want to add in, Helen? Any memory or anything that you can think of that, anything at all you just want to talk about?
I think that's probably it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Could you sign your name across here, this blank piece of paper? Just however you normally, sign
My
your name.
signature?
Yep.
Just right across the middle?
Mm-hmm. Nice and big.
Oh, bigger than that?
That's good.
You're the first Dumbo that cried.
No, everybody's crying, making me cry. And I didn't mean to do that.
Oh.
Oh, sorry. Did you get... Okay, Ron?
Yes.
Okay, Matka.
Yes.
Can I ask you how old you are? I know how old you are, but would you tell me?
No, that's 39. 61.
Okay. Okay, first question is, when you think about your mother and father, what stands out in your mind the most? Is there a memory that's the strongest about them as soon as you hear their name?
Oh, I don't know. There's so many things that it'd be hard to say. But I think, maybe their love for their church and God, and the way they brought us up, and the way they taught us our prayers when we were young, and
Somebody else mentioned that about the prayer.
Was so important in learning our prayers in the Slovak language and kneeling down by the kitchen table, not sitting down or slouching around. We had to kneel upright. Well, I don't know if that answers your question. I forgot what the question was.
Okay, what was it like for you as a child growing up in your household?
Well, it was fun because we didn't know any other kind of a life. And we always had plenty to eat.
Excuse me.
Sure.
That one priest I think you have reference to, you know, you mentioned before, could it have been a Father Ronald Larco?
No, I don't think the name was Larco.
No, because I know he was in Sykesville for a while.
Yeah, I know that name. I've heard it.
Because
Now, this is a new priest that came to Sykesville. You could turn it off, sir.
Yeah, I'm going to pause it.
Okay. Well, that's okay.
That's okay, Paul.
That's okay.
I didn't know it was big.
Okay. Well, we'll go ahead then. We'll
Please go
continue.
ahead.
Okay, that's no big deal.
Is it off?
No, it's on now. We'll
Okay.
continue.
I'll talk to you later, Paul.
Sure, please.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, that's okay.
No big
Don't worry
deal.
about it.
Thank you.
Okay, well,
That's good.
what were we talking about as a child growing up?
Well, things were tough and hard, and we didn't have all the luxuries, the things that children have nowadays. But we had food and everything we needed.
What about with your brothers and sisters? What do you remember? What was that like, you know,
Well,
in the same house with all the brothers and sisters?
well, when I was growing up, my older sisters were already gone from home, and Andy, my brother Andy, and it was kind of special having them living away because they would come home for visits, and sometimes they would send money or send us things. We got special things because we had them living away from home. But there were always a lot of us at home, and
That's good. Is there a favorite story that Grandma and Grandpa used to tell? Do you remember anything we used to talk about a lot? How it used to be for them before they came to America? Or Grandma's trip over on the boat?
well, just that they were sick a lot on the boat coming over, and how hard it was for them when they came to New Jersey after they got off the boat. And then the thing that they got married right away, and they left New Jersey. Well, no, Grandma worked as a maid, and I don't know what Grandpa did. I really don't remember. But that part I don't remember too. But Grandma talked more about later on about how things were in Czechoslovakia when she was, a young girl, and of course she came to America.
What did she say about that?
Well, she just talked about the school a lot, and
Her school that
the
she
way-
went to?
the school she went to, and the things she learned.
Like what?
Well, they had sewing, and the school, the language was in Hungarian. They learned in the Hungarian language.
What about Grandpa? Did he ever talk about what it was like for him over there? His family, his mother and
I don't
father?
remember too much about him talking about the family life or too much of that. He was always so busy working and to support the big family. I just mostly remember things that growing up with him, at home, and the things we did, special things like going to christenings, and different things, because after he worked in the mines all day and he worked hard and everything, and then he liked to, when there was something special going on, have a few drinks and have a good time.
What do you remember about Johnny? You were
Nothing. I was a baby when he died.
You were just a baby.
I was a baby.
What do you remember anybody's talking about anything about him that you could remember?
Well, just the older ones like Andy and Betty, and then I remember Mom talking about him a little bit when he was sick. He suffered because the doctor didn't know what the problem was, and instead
instead of him, sending him to the hospital, he just would tell Grandma, well, I'll give him a physic or give him an accident or something, and that only made it worse. And then when he got so sick they didn't know what to do with him, the doctor said, well, take him to the hospital.
That's about all you remember about him then?
Well, that's all I remember, Grandma talking about him and how sad it was. And then when he, at the funeral, how sad it was. And they just cried and cried.
Grandma talked about that. She told you that.
Oh no, I think maybe I heard Uncle Andy talking about that.
Okay, what's your favorite food that Grandma used to cook?
Oh, there were so many.
That's what everybody said.
What a Dickie.
What's that?
No. Oh, that's something that Aunt Anna wrote in her letter. And Dad and I couldn't find it in the dictionary. So we finally asked Roseanne, and she said it was tomatoes. I like the dish that Grandma cooked with rice. And it was cooked, and then Grandma would put some milk in it and thicken it. And then she would spread it out on a dinner plate, and then brown butter, and pour the butter over, and then put sugar on it. So good.
I don't know what that was called.
I'm not quite sure what it was called. It wasn't bushy. Well, anyway. But there are other things I like. I like mostly everything that she cooked. Polishki and pierogi, and chicken soup.
If you had to describe Grandma and Grandpa to someone who never met them before, how would you describe them? What kind of people were they?
Well, I'd say they were hardworking, honest, God-fearing people that worked hard and scrimped and saved so that we would have whatever we needed. And they were intelligent too. They liked to know what was going on in the world, and they read the paper whenever they could.
What do you miss most about them?
Well, just having parents, having them around and knowing that we had parents, so if we ever wanted to talk to them about anything. Miss not seeing them, having them not see our grandchildren.
Somebody else said that.
And especially, as the little granddaughters came along, because that Grandma would have enjoyed that so much too.
The great-granddaughters, you mean?
The great-granddaughters.
And if they were sitting here right now beside you, what would you say to them?
Oh, I don't know. It would make me cry. I'll just tell them that I loved them and missed them.
What do you think they'd say?
That they did a very good job of raising us and bringing us up, and instilled all the values that we have and everything. And I would thank Grandma for teaching me what I know about about our faith, the religion, and thanking her for all the love that I have for the church.
What would she say? What would they say if they saw all these people, all of the family?
Oh, I don't know. They'd probably think, oh, they did a good job. They'd be so proud of everybody.
Okay. That's it, unless you want to add something else. You can think of anything else.
Oh, I don't know. There were so many nice things that, memories I have of them that, when I was a little girl, but we probably run out of time now.
Can you say anything?
No. Well, the one thing I remember about Dad was when he worked away in the mines and he'd come home. He'd come home he didn't come home every day, every night. And when we always knew he was home when there'd be corn candy in the little cupboard in the kitchen. And we'd wake up in the morning and see the corn candy there, and we'd know he was home. And it was Grandma. My first memory of her was I was about 5 years old, and I was Uncle Eddie was 7 years younger than me.
So I was like the baby for a long time. So when they would all go off to school, and Grandma would play marbles with me. And I remember on the carpet, you know, the old-fashioned carpets with the lines. And that's my first memory of anything when I was 5 years old. And those were like special times with Grandma because I had her all to myself because I was, you know, I didn't have any younger children, any brothers or sisters around.
Okay, that was good. Okay, sign your name across here, just as big as you know, nice and big and dark. Yeah.
I did terrible.
Oh, you did good. Very good. Okay, thank you. Okay, that's it.
Okay,
Do you want to ask Uncle Eddie to come
Okay.
over? Thank you, Mom.
Sure. In fact, I would like to see what everybody else is, because I know I'm the second from the last, and I'm pretty sure that it was a lot easier for me than it was the first or the second. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, we're on. Okay. All right. First of all, Uncle Ed, can I ask you how old you are?
Yes, I'm 54.
All right. First question. When you think about your mother and father, what stands out most in your mind? Is there a favorite memory or a strongest memory of them?
I'll start with my father first. I remember him as a strong, tough person who probably, if he wasn't as tough, that it may have been very difficult for the family to survive and stay intact all of the years. And you can see by today's function that everybody's still with their original spouse or family, and they still have a good sense of religion and good values and hard work and just basically good people. So I think that a lot of the credit belongs to the leadership that my father exerted or showed, even though he was tough and even though many had to fight a hard pill. Without that toughness, it could have gotten away. So that I have to give him credit for. Okay.
Okay. How about your
and my mother was. I actually think that she was probably a little smarter than my father, and that was nice. And I think she appeared to me. I mean, not that we're trying to establish who was smarter, but I think she was very intelligent.
In what ways? What makes you say that?
In what ways? Because if my father made a ruling or put down the law, or maybe did something or made some decision or jumped on a particular family member, and maybe she didn't think it was all, maybe that was the right way to go, she didn't jump up and cause a problem by showing lack of support. In other words, she was smart enough to be submissive at the right time in that, so that toughness could, it wouldn't be contradicted by something she would do. And then once the child would, or the family member would see that maybe the mother wasn't supporting that would give them a little opening to, and a little crack to go against it. But I think your basic question of what do I think of my father, what are my fondest memories, I wouldn't want to pick out just one memory, but I would like to categorize it by saying that I think basically the thing that I remember most about him was his toughness. And he seemed to always be a man. Not that these are manly traits, but he smoked cigarettes. He was a coal miner, and he drank alcohol, and that was all considered to be,
in that day,
that was
sure.
For that day that was okay, even though those are the things that probably the long run helped to shorten his life a little bit, plus the hard work. But that was something, you got the impression that any kind of competition there was, that he always told me that he could come out number one in whatever it was, whether it was, he mentioned hockey or whatever, sport, bowling or anything like that. And I know from the luck he had in hunting and things like that, it was probably true. He was one of those people that I think was a leader in his own right. So that's what I remember most. Now about grandmother, I just thought the world, and when I think back on her, I think of her kindness and her fairness and the fact that she went to church all the way till the end. I mean, real church, not going through the motions. It was there, and to be able to believe and worship and be a strong Catholic like she was, I think that was just a special, that was just something special that was given to her. And I think that she was very intelligent, and probably in my mind, she was a saint.
Okay, good. Okay, what was it like for you as a child growing up in your household?
Being the second from the last child, I think that it was very comfortable. I think that it was much harder for Andy, Betty, Mary, Paul, all of the above. I think that it was a lot easier. I know it had to be a lot easier for me. So I had a very happy remembrance. Even though we worked hard, we worked probably harder and did more things than a kid across the street. I remember I played in, well, why do I say that? I learned to play the trumpet. Somebody was smart enough to introduce me into something that opened up other doors for me with the public. And I learned a lot from that. I was the first in our family to go to college. Now, that opportunity was given to me, and I seized the opportunity. Had I not been so inclined or ready for it, I probably would have not even given the opportunity. It would have never materialized. So I had a very comfortable early childhood, which I have to say is probably because of the hard work of the other children that went before me, plus the fact our parents could see the end was coming, and I'm sure they weren't as hard or they weren't as restrictive as they may have been. But that was, I had no choice in that matter. But I have to say that it was very nice and very enjoyable.
Is there a favorite story that Grandma and Grandpa used to tell that you could share with me? Did they ever talk about any one or two things over and over that they remembered from their past?
I don't really recall that much. I have to say that I was a junior in college, which would, I suppose I would have been 19 years old. I didn't have the amount of time with my father to be as close on the other end of the spectrum as maybe Andy or some of the others were, especially Andy. So I don't remember any stories that come to mind that really that I could expound on. I think that I really liked my father, and but I think that he was, well, what I wanted to say is let's assume I was 19, and he passed away at that age, so I wasn't of age, man enough to communicate with him like I was not married, I had no children, I hadn't gone through all that experience. So I was, we got cut short there, I think, in that regard. So I don't have any experiences like that. And no, that really stand out. I don't have any like that. And with my mother, there were just numerous stories that she talked about all the time, and I guess the thing that stuck with me most was her trip and how she made it to this country.
What did she mention?
She mentioned if I can remember all of this, she mentioned that she left her hometown, and this was very hard for me to believe it, at the age of 16, somewhere in that thing, and as she was making her way through Eastern Europe, Slovakia is all the way almost in the Ukraine. You've got to come all the way to Prague, and then you get in Eastern Germany now, and all those places. I remember her saying she came into a place late, and like everybody was running to the gate where they were going to close the gate for the next group to go through, and she just made it to the gate, and there was somebody there. Somebody was so nice that he said, okay, come on through, and it was probably some German official or policeman or something like that, and she made it through that and kept pace with her schedule, scared stiffless, probably all the way. And then her trip on the boat itself, which was in steerage class, the lowest class in the bottom, where she was seasick and had this gold chain with a gold piece attached to it that her father had given to her, and she had that around her neck, and she was so sick and delirious, and she woke up and she couldn't find out where that was, and she later discovered it, and she felt so relieved. And then the other thing that really,
and her money was in there somewhere.
Yeah, her money was in there. She found it again, but she was so frightened during that time. And the other thing that that she told me about that is really something is, it came time to get a job once she came to New Jersey, and she was in, I guess, something equivalent to the employment office, where the domestics were the immigrant girls were lined up, and the prospective employees came in and looked to see what the crowd was that came off the boat to choose one to go to work for them, and he finally picked her out, and she was so happy, and but it was just like sort of like bartering for slaves or something like that. That's what I got the impression. She didn't, and she just didn't like that treatment, I could tell. But what were you supposed to do? You couldn't speak the language. You couldn't. You didn't have any education, but yet they were smart in their own way, if you want to call it education. The intelligence and the character of my mother would equal any education of any person I've seen, in a lot of cases. So I mean, I'm not going to say, but the knowledge of the language and just being handled like a slave, so to speak, was very. I remembered her saying that, and then she went to work for the people, and it seemed to work out okay. But that is what I remember, and probably I could go on at length, more. But those are the two from my mother. Now my father, again, I'm trying to think of right off the cuff. I just remember him telling me that anything that they had, he could be number one in it, like whatever little events, ice skating, making a wooden skate with
He told you that?
Yeah, he told me that they made wooden skates with a wire on the bottom, and they would skate on the Laborz River one swipe, and they could go, so many meters or miles, and then with the other, and all of that hockey and so forth. He was that he could be number one in all that stuff, and I believed it.
Good. Okay, do you remember any stories about Johnny? Of course, you weren't born yet when he died.
I wasn't born, but what I remember and recount, and the ones closer would have more vivid, and that's why it would be interesting to see the tape all put together. But I just have to go on what I was told, and that was a very... people get killed all over the world. They die all over the world. You have a situation in Sarajevo, all kind of sad tales. But when I hear this one, it seemed to be almost like a crime. I don't know. It just really seems sad the way that happened. First of all, he injured his leg on an accident around a railroad car. Kids run out. I don't know if my father was supposed to be watching him and she was watching somebody else. And I believe she told me that she was upset because he was playing cards somewhere with the men, and nobody, I got him, you get him type of thing. Nobody knew where the kid was. I don't know if this is accurate or not, and I don't know if my memory is holding up on that or not, but I remembered something like that. But it's not that I would fault my father, because being a parent of 5 children, which I think of all the children I do have the most so far, and but having 5 children, I know that this can come up. And I know when Sally left me with the supervision of 2 kids and went out somewhere, and I was sitting on the couch, and Eddie and Stephen were outside playing golf, and Ed swung, and instead of hitting the golf club, he hit Steve's jaw and fractured it, and Sally came home and said what happened, and Steve was already on the couch in a state of shock, and we were headed for Walter Reed. Well, I know that things like that can happen, but this is what I hear, the first case of when he injured himself. So then he ends up being hobbled, really crippled, and the medical treatment at that time probably wasn't enough to, it wasn't soon enough, or probably wasn't adequate. And then the fact that he got, when he got sick, that I suppose it was appendicitis, and what we heard was that his appendix burst, and gangrene set in, that when they called the doctor, he was sick and crying, and like the doctor said, okay, give him castor oil and maybe some medication. So the castor oil probably didn't do anything but agitate the situation internally. The sleeping probably allowed the gangrene to dig in, and on a calm basis, and just catch hold even better. And finally, when he was taken to the hospital and operated on, they probably found that the gangrene had spread and there was not much hope. And so it's a reflection on the medical treatment that was available at the time. And so that was all a very sad thing. And having been the first child that you've had in a strange country, having come across under those adverse circumstances, must have really had to really tear you up. And I remember one thing that my mother told me about, probably when John was dying, was that he said in Slovak that he wanted more water to drink, and he said, moje nožky zimno, that means my legs are getting cold, and so maybe circulation was cutting off, and that was toward the end. So that's what I remember about Johnny, and I'm trying to establish my children, maybe which look like him, which represent him, or which in any way might resemble him in any way, and I'm sure he was going to be an intelligent kid in his own right, because he would go to school and come back home and teach my parents how to speak English and learn some of the basic grammar skills that he was learning. So that I knew, and my mother told me that he really liked to read books. And I can't remember, but there were probably some that she mentioned by name, that maybe Jack London books, I don't know, but books that he would read and tell them about. So reading books at that age and so forth.
Some of the older ones mentioned he had darker hair, he was very good looking.
Yeah.
Several people
So
said he was
I'm sure he had to be, seeing all the other children, I know he had to be talented, I'm pretty sure. So that's about all I remember, Susan.
Okay, thank you. Okay, what was your favorite food that Grandma used to cook?
Favorite food? Well, I really liked the way she would make steak and onions. And believe it or not, I have to say this, she made kidney, I suppose it was beef kidney, it may have been pork kidneys, with smothered in onions, and I like that, and I would just take that.
Liver.
No, kidney. Okay, kidney, with a little, I suppose even a little taste of uric acid in there somewhere, that all of the uric acid wasn't passed out of those kidneys. But it was hard, sort of hard, and it was chewy, and I would dip that in mustard and with those smothered in onions. I thought that was very good. Now, I'm not going to say that was the best thing that she ever made. I would say the bread buns and kolache had to be the kolache or the nut rolls.
Okay.
The poppy seed rolls I would consider, and the apricot rolls. All of that wrapped up I would call it kolache, and the poppy seed. So then I really liked our tradition at Easter time with the kolbasi and the egg cheese, the frutka, the pasca, and all of that went with it. And I did like to fast and really enjoy that. So that's probably the highlight, I suppose. But I mentioned those other things as interesting little things that as I say, maybe other members of the family have memories of something else. I did like believe it or not, we would hunt and the rabbits that we would catch and fry up in a egg batter. I did like to take the hind legs of the rabbit, and I liked that very much. Okay.
Okay. Describe your mother and father to someone who's never met them before, who had never known them.
Well, I would be repeating myself on my father and mother, I guess, from what I've already told you, but I would explain to, assuming it was another officer along the route, and many times I did explain my background to them, all the way from second lieutenant up through the line, but I always told them that I was a coal miner because my father was a coal miner. He was tough, and he was a real tough guy because of the fact that he was a coal miner, and all the smoking and drinking and the hunting and all the exploits over there would be off to the side. That's what I would say, and a real tough person who had a tough job in raising, depending upon how you want to look at it, let's say 9 to 10 kids on a coal miner's salary, all of which we're very proud of, each and every one. And the point that I mentioned to you, they all seem to be with their original spouses, and they all seem to be trying hard. The family that they left is their legend, is his legend. And for my mother too, that she was a saint, she was religious, she was fair, she was understanding. She would write a letter, and believe me, today a lot of people like to call their children because maybe they're too lazy to write a letter. But I didn't get many letters, but when I would get a letter from her, you could rest assured it wouldn't be a long one, but the points that were made in there were better than any half-hour telephone call or some big long letter of somebody who couldn't get down to the points that they wanted to make. I just looked upon that she was an extremely intelligent person, and extremely good person, there again, to be able to raise 9 to 10 children on a coal miner's salary under adverse conditions in a harsh climate, and you just couldn't say enough about them. He was a prince and she was a saint as far as I was concerned.
Okay. What do you miss most about them? Of course you miss them, they're gone, but is there anything?
With my father, I was a junior at Indiana when he passed away. I miss most of my career, which spanned 30 years, and a lot of travel and living overseas. I miss the fact that I couldn't have taken him to watch a parachute jump that I was in, or that I couldn't have taken him to Germany, stayed with us. My grandmother was able to do later, that he wasn't able to enjoy some of the things that I was able to enjoy, which I feel very fortunate, because of the hard work of the rest of the family made some of this possible for me. I realize that. But I would have liked for him to have lived long enough to have seen some of the world and seen some of the, open up to some of the places where doors were closed to him. That's what I... Now, with, what was the question again?
What do you miss most?
Okay, so that's not actually missing most, but that's the comment that I want to make in response to that question. And what I miss most about my mother, well, she survived my father, and I think what I miss most there is the fact that while she was alive, our family was pulled a little closer together, because if there was something you would tell her and she might give you some advice, and she was always fair to all of the other children. I could see that she wanted to be fair with everybody, and I just miss being able to tell her how the children or what the children are doing, and things of such as that. Just miss her mothership and the guidance and the valuable advice she could give. Yeah. Plus the fact that you just miss seeing her, but I'm realistic enough to know that after 88 years in this world, and having gone through the tough life all the way from 16 years of age and making that way through the gates and raising all the children, through the coal mines, the strikes, the moves, the uncertainties, the heavy drinking, and maybe at some times, and all the sorrow, that she was still able to live to that ripe old age, and so I just miss all of that association. But I accepted the fact that the end had to come to.
Okay, if they were here right now, sitting beside you, what would you say to them?
I would probably say to my father, thanks for being tough. I often thought of him as a soldier, and I tried to do whatever I could to please him. I would tell him that, and to let all the bygones be bygones. If I was not the best child, or I wasn't obedient when I should have been, I would have said, I'd like to forgive all that. And with my mother, basically the same thing. I would like to thank her for raising all of the children and raising me and giving me the values that I have tried to give to my children. And I would have said thanks, and isn't this a lovely day here to be out here and to see all of this, and if they would just receive all the thanks and condolences that I could convey.
Okay, that's all I have, unless there's anything else you want to add, anything you want to talk about?
Not at all. Thanks a lot, Susan, for your interest in setting this up for you, and also for the record for Tommy Bonarigo, who's really established the leadership to set this up. We all don't know how much he did yet, and we don't have any idea, but you and he have shown that you have done some work in there. So people may not, to Tommy and to you and to others, may not know how to express themselves, to express the thanks properly, but I think deep in their heart they want to, and they may not just know how. So if you don't just get it served to you on a golden platter, thanks very much, and let's see if we can't do it again. Let's see if we can get more of the cousins at the cousin level to pick up and spread it a little bit more, so that it can continue every several years, not to be, but somebody has to step in addition. They have to step in, yeah. And so to all the ones who are able and have the talent, they should use their talent to try to do something like this in the future, because we want to establish, I think, ourselves and our family, and we want them all to come up so that they don't have to struggle quite as hard as their ancestors had to, but yet to be proud of their heritage, and to go on to bigger and better things, and to exceed even what little accomplishments some of their relatives have been able to enjoy. But everyone played a part, and everybody is a champion, and everybody is a winner in the family. So we want to continue that. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank
Would
you.
you sign your name across this middle of the paper?
Full signature?
However you sign your name, yes. Nice and big. Jim! No, that's on the tape.
Okay.
Thank you again very much,
Thanks,
Uncle
Susan.
Ed.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Ed.
Oh, we're out of tape, Uncle Bill.
Well, this is probably going to take a couple hours. You got light?
It better not.
Would you believe 5 minutes?
Okay, we're on. First of all, can I ask you how old you are?
50.
Okay. All right. When you think about Grandma and Grandpa, your mom and dad, what stands out in your mind the most? Is there a favorite memory or a very strong picture that you have of them?
I would say strength, having provided a real solid background and getting ready to live a life, setting a good example, whether it be from the religious side to the daily living side. Basically, hard work, doing what you have to do, doing it right, and being, and following your religion, and just doing what has to be done and doing it right and doing it well.
Okay.
That's what
What was it like for you, Uncle Bill, as a child when you were growing up in your household?
What was it like? Well, that's a pretty broad question, but I would just say that it was a very happy childhood. Since I was the youngest in the family, a lot of my memories are of my older brothers and sisters and them coming to visit, them coming for vacations, even some of them when they were still dating. For example, your mother and your father, I can remember clearly when your father would come to the house to date your mother, and the same with some of the other ones. I remember a lot of the weddings, the baptisms, and things like that. A lot of good, happy times. And maybe that I was the youngest in the family, maybe in some cases my brothers and sisters may have spoiled me a little bit compared to maybe the way they, some of the nicer things that they may not have had the privilege of having. But basically good, positive memories of a good childhood, and just all positive things, I would say.
Good. Is there a favorite story that your mother and father used to tell that you could share with me?
Well, that's a hard one. I can't think of any specific story right offhand.
A lot of your brothers and sisters have mentioned the boat trip coming over. Did Grandma talk about that much to you? You were one of the younger ones, and maybe that didn't get conveyed to you as
well,
much.
I remember that being discussed. I would say that I probably wouldn't have anything more to add than what's already been said. But the more I think about it, probably one of the more interesting things that I did with my mother later on. In fact, it's something I probably ought to dig out and reproduce for everyone, and that's a paper that I wrote when I was in college about the town of Michalovce, which is, of course, where they both came from. And I wrote it for a college course. I don't even remember the course anymore. It was some kind of cultural course, maybe anthropology or something like that. And I wrote a long paper, and basically I just did it by interviewing my mother. And it just told a lot of things about their customs and cultures and how they were raised and how they grew up in the small town of Michalovce, which was basically a farming town, and how they lived in the center of the town. Even though they were farmers, that they would go out every day to farm a plot of land, which would be maybe a mile or two away from the center of the town, which is completely the reverse of the type of farms we have in America, where they're out by themselves. And the kind of food they used to eat, some of the difficult times, the fact that they had to go to school and learn the Hungarian language, even though their nationality was Slovak, since they were under the control of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, they had to speak the Hungarian language, so some of that kind of information.
So the children had to learn Hungarian.
Right, so and that's why my mother and father, learned to the day they died, they could speak Hungarian as fluently as they could Slovak, so by the time they learned English, really, they had at least 3 languages that they spoke very well. So they were really, in that sense, probably more educated than the average American here who speaks only English. So they had a lot And at any event, those are the kinds of things I remember. And again, pretty positive stories that gave you a feeling of pride in what they had done, where they had come from, and how they had built themselves up since they came to the United States.
What do you remember being told to you about Johnny? Because I know you weren't born yet, of course, when he died. We're trying
Not too much, really. In fact, I just learned more recently about how he died and the fact that it was due to appendicitis in the first appendix. And prior to that, I guess he had been injured by a railroad car and injured his leg, and then later on, and not too long afterwards, I guess, when he came down with appendicitis. Basically, the appendix burst, and in those days they didn't have adequate antibiotics, and I guess that's all he died of. But that's pretty much what I knew. A lot of it is really not until just recently.
So as you were growing up, no one spoke too much about him, you know?
No, not really. And, you know, it was, of course, for a young boy growing up, you know, to think of someone that had died that was back in 1933 seemed like centuries ago, so it really wasn't of any great interest to me until I got older. It really wasn't anything that I think a younger kid would ask too many questions about to be interested in.
Okay. What was your favorite food that Grandma used to cook?
They all were favorites. Halushkis, kibasi, halupki, potato pancakes. Even, believe it or not, my mother's homemade spaghetti, which was many times we ate that on Fridays, you know, during, of course in those days you couldn't eat meat on Friday, but especially during Lent when we ate less meat, she'd make a special spaghetti sauce that was meatless. It was really delicious, and she made a good spaghetti like that. And even though all the old traditional Slovak foods, she even made homemade pizza a lot, and that was something else.
But one favorite? Can't pick one?
No, I really wouldn't have one favorite. There are just too many of them.
Okay. How would you describe your mother and father to someone who had never met them before?
My mother, strong-willed, very dedicated, kind of goal-oriented, very, very aware of human nature, very smart individual, very good organizer, thrifty, knew how to handle finances, knew how to run a house. My father, I viewed him as a very dedicated, strong person who, of course, in that day and age, and even today can certainly fit the mold of, you know, the father role, the male role as being the breadwinner. But a very, very hard worker, and someone that didn't know what the word lazy or not being able to work meant. I guess that pretty well sums it up. But all positive images.
What do you miss most about them? Of course you miss that they're not here anymore, but what do you miss most?
Being able to talk to them about current events, particularly like what's happened not only in the downfall of communism, Czechoslovakia, now Slovakia has been freed, talking about some of those things, asking maybe more questions that I wished I had thought about their background and so forth, about religion, some of the changes that have occurred in the church, and some of the history of old Slovakia, some things like that. And then just being able to share things, particularly as you get older, that you know you can't anymore. I would say just basic conversation, communication, that's right.
Okay, and I have one more for you, Uncle Bill. If your mother and father were here right now, sitting beside you, what would you say to them?
I would say the most important thing is to thank them. To thank them for everything that they gave us. And basically, it was, I think, a strong sense of religion, a strong sense of being a good person, taking care of your family, and all the positive attributes and characteristics that one would hope to have. And they instilled a lot of that in us. you know, I'm sure even though they weren't perfect, and we all aren't perfect as parents, but somehow or other those positive things existed, and they did it. They did it, by golly. They, over much more difficulty than we ever had. The difficulties they had to endure traveling from Czechoslovakia and in the early days putting up with the language barrier. And I'm sure even a little bit of discrimination because they were immigrants and everything that came with that. But rising above that and just thanking them for all they gave us.
Okay, that's all I have for you. Unless there's anything else you'd like to add, anything you can.
No, I'd just like to say, Susan, you did a great job in this. And I'm really thankful that you decided to do this, and I'm sure it'll be well worth the effort. And keep up the good work.
Could I have you sign your name right across here, please?
Sure.
Nice and big.
Okay. Oh, how big do you want it?
Just as big as you can, right across there. Your signature. That's perfect. Hi, Jimmy. Okay, Uncle Bill.
Okay, Sue.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed talking with you.
Okay, that was good.
Oh, I see. I thought somebody was dropping you off.
I drove down with a friend of mine who lives in Pittsburgh, but I borrowed the car, so it's at Uncle Bill house.
So, Susan, out of all that you heard today, what is...
This would be nice, though, because then you'd really get to see each other someday. I mean, after the road letters and everything. They're going to be pen pals, too, they think. I knew that was going to happen.
Do we want to put this thing, or...
Oh, did you get your turn yet?
Not anymore. You don't remember those days when we were home and we were
Oh, I know. It was a long time since we had. Sure.
I didn't get your picture all day, Sue, so there.
I think the last time, starting to build your house, maybe. Yeah, exactly right.
Nicole Barber.
You know what this is?
Seven o'clock in the morning.
Don't hide, Andy.
I thought you were doing something.
No.